During the 31st World Table Tennis Championship, better known as ping pong, in Nagoya, Japan, American ping pong champion Glenn Cowan aborted the wrong bus following the game and ended up traveling with the communist Chinese ping pong team. Cowan eventually befriended the Chinese team, which led to the historical opening of relations between President Richard Nixon and Mao Zedong of China. Sports has always been a way of cutting through so many complex political and cultural differences. Sports are, in a sense, a universal language that speaks to all of us. Ping pong diplomacy happened almost exactly 54 years ago. Today, President Donald J. Trump travels to his iconic golf course in Doral, Florida to host the LIV golf tournament that is put on by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. While hitting the links, Trump is expected to engage in his own brand of unique golf diplomacy. And he does this in the midst of what many believe will be a massive series of joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes against suspected nuclear weapons facilities deep inside Iran. But the president has already indicated he'd prefer to do a deal with the Iranians rather than bomb them. And the Saudis have plainly stated they oppose any airstrikes on Iran. So that begs the question, are we set for some major power plays on Trump's golf course this weekend? Many believe ping pong diplomacy averted a major war with China back in the 1970s. In fact, some argue that China's friendship with the U.S. following ping pong diplomacy actually helped to end the Cold War sooner by depriving the Soviet Union of a key ally in Asia like Communist China. Today, almost no one in the MAGA movement wants another Middle Eastern war, least of all President Donald J. Trump. Could this be the new round of golf diplomacy with the Saudis that'll help to initiate a movement towards a more equitable peace in the Mideast rather than yet another regional war? I'm joined now by Lindelltv's White House correspondent, Kara Castronova. What else is happening at the White House that has not only the media up in arms, but I will tell you the administrative state and the steady foreign policy estate at large is the fact that several national security officials allegedly got quote unquote lured in the last couple of days after she met with President Donald Trump on Wednesday to provide him with some quote unquote opposition research about certain people. Particularly, this included many officials at the National Security Council. That is an entity that is housed under the White House that often the deep state targets in order to house their actors to subvert, particularly during the first term Trump policy. Most recently was this national security, the NSA official General Hoff. Unfortunately, the deputy national security advisor, though, Alex Wong, seems to be marked safe for now. He's number 2 to national security advisor Michael Waltz. We had flagged him early on when he was named to that position as someone that was not necessarily an America First pick. He was actually Loomer's main target initially. So why, Kara, is Wong, Deputy National Security Advisor Wong, not on the chopping block this week?
Well, it just, from the sources that I have spoken to, really, it's that Mike Waltz is not going anywhere anytime soon. The president has made that clear. So it's unlikely that Alex Wong will be fired or go anywhere, I think, as long as Mike Waltz is around. But I guess that's to be determined. Like you mentioned, Laura Loomer was very much an advocate to have this guy fired, and she put some pretty interesting stuff out there on X that I was reading. So I guess time will tell.
Yeah, we won't get into details of that. Let's just suffice it to say it's been long time fodder of DC rumor mills that she shared. But again, we won't get into that on air. And Trump did actually directly address the Loomer White House meeting on that same plane ride where we just heard about Iran, right? He was asked about if this was a result of Loomer's meeting.
Correct. He was asked by a reporter what the nature of Laura Loomer's visit was, and she asked him, "Did you recommend if people were fired or hired?" And Trump actually said that she had recommended some people to be hired by the administration. So check that clip out.
We
That was
actually
on
have
Air
that.
Force One. Yeah, please play it. It's a great clip.
She recommended certain people for jobs.
Adding to the administration, not
Adding.
Who did
but
she
not
recommend?
firing.
Well, she'll recommend that too.
Who
But yesterday she recommended some people for jobs.
Did she have anything to do with the NSC aides who were ousted?
No, not at all.
Oh, yeah,
So,
interesting,
President
right?
Trump, yeah, he's saying, no, she recommended people for jobs, but Laura's out there taking full credit.
Right.
And look, I know the work she's been doing. I've talked to Laura. I think she probably deserves the credit, and we should give her some applause for saving us from some bad actors.
Right. Certainly she does great work, and I'm a supporter of the work she does. We really do have to continue to clean out Washington. Trump is in office, but there's a lot of people lurking around here. Trust me when I tell you, deep state creatures, swamp creatures, waiting in foxholes, ready to emerge if President Trump is not. Obviously, in 4 years, there will be a new president. We don't know who that will be, but these people, I just feel like they're just biding their time, waiting to come out again. So the work of Laura Loomer is important because she is helping expose who needs to be fired.
Hey, look, she's got her work cut out for her because it's like a game of whack-a-mole in Washington, D.C. in the
Right.
swamp. The moment you take one out, another one pops up over there. So God bless her. Thank you so much, Kara Kashnova. God bless you, too. Thank you for reporting for us live from the White House.
Thanks, Emerald.
You, my friend, need Native Path collagen. Made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers, these are the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, your gut. Type 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Also, Native Path collagen has no additives, no artificial sweeteners. It's also completely flavorless, which is important because Native Path collagen can be added to anything. I put it in my coffee. Also, because of its special peptide formulation, it mixes more easily than any other collagen I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot. But the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. Plus, they have a 365-day no-risk guarantee, making Native Path the trusted choice. All you have to do is visit getnativepath.com/truth. That's getnativepath.com/truth to start your transformation. Well, it's now 2 days after President Donald Trump announced our new National Liberation Day, instituting massive numbers of tariffs on most other countries and what Trump claims is a bid to equalize our unfair trade with these countries, unfair trade that favors those other countries over our own. Now, some of America's closest partners, notably Canada, who've been the most vocal about sending up to us on Trump's trade war, are already buckling. Just 48 hours after the trade war began, Ontario leader Doug Ford insists that so long as Donald Trump brings tariffs on goods going into Canada down to 0%, he'll return the favor on all goods going into America. So to be clear, this is what winning looks like. I'm assuming most of you in this audience voted for this. And joining us now is trade expert Spencer Morrison. He's the author of the excellent new book you can get anywhere, including Amazon, Reshore: How Tariffs Will Bring Our Jobs Home and Revive the American Dream. And he joins us again now. Spencer, you were with us Wednesday as the president, right after the president made that historic announcement of Liberation Day. We got to chat for just a little bit, but I wanted to talk to you more in depth. We now had 2 days, pretty much a straight 48 hours since President Trump made this announcement. And what do you make of the effects thus far, the responses of countries to President Trump's tariffs?
Hi, Emerald. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to see you again. We have got exactly what I thought would happen. So what President Trump did on Liberation Day, just to be very clear, he jacked up the tariff rates to about 50% of what the foreign nations are trading us, right? So if a country was charging us 50%, the tariff rate that we're charging them is now jacked up to 25%, and so on and so forth. And what this has done is it's provided a carrot and a stick. The carrot is President Trump's proposition to these foreign nations. He's saying, look, if you guys bring your tariff rates down and match ours, we're going to have lower average tariff rates across the board, and there's going to be more fair and freer trade than ever before. And the point of this is so that the president is trying to open up foreign markets for American goods. I mean, you look at right now, Indian companies, Chinese companies, they're free to sell their goods in America. American companies cannot sell their goods in these countries for the reason is that they're being priced out, right? So this is the carrot. If tariff rates come down, we're going to have more free trade, which I think everybody can get on board with. The other side is that this is a stick. Tariff rates are going up, and if other countries don't come to the table, the president has made it pretty clear he's going to continue raising those rates to match them. It'll be truly reciprocal. And at that point, they won't have access to America's beautiful consumer market anymore. And I think a lot of countries are just going to do the math, and they're going to say, look, it's very valuable to sell in America. We're going to open our markets to you. So I think, like you said at the top of the segment, other countries are coming to the table.
Yeah, the stick is working. In other words, already Vietnam is begging for relief from President Trump, according to Twitter user at Eric L. Doff. He says it's breaking. Art of the deal alert. Vietnam official calls Trump, says they want to remove all tariffs in a deal with U.S. On the flip side, though, China did declare a reciprocal trade war on the U.S. Is that because, Spencer, Beijing is offended? Or as our resident geopolitical analyst, Brandon Weichert, has argued for years, trade is a weapon that China, and I mean, Donald Trump has said that himself, right? Especially during the first term, that China uses trade as a weapon to destroy America's economic vitality in order to empower their own economic vitality.
Well, here's the deal with China. Over the last 50 years, especially since 2001, when China joined the World Trade Organization, their economy has been completely designed to prey upon America's economy. They've used our consumer markets to leapfrog their manufacturing sector and their other industries. They've stolen trillions of dollars worth of American technology, and they've used this to turn themselves into a relatively modern economy. The problem is that China's consumer market has not kept pace, so they're still very dependent on America's consumer market. So China is in a tricky situation where we're dependent on them, for critical goods, right? Like most of our computer chips are coming from China. Just about everything you see in the store, it comes from China, right? So we're dependent on them. But at the same time, China is very dependent on America, because without access to America's market, China's economy goes down the pipes, right? So I think they're in a position right now where it's very difficult for them to lower their tariffs. Because they need to continue preying upon America's market, because they don't have a fully developed economy. They have a predator economy, and America is finally liberating ourselves from China's grasp.
Liberation Day. Donald Trump says, this is what he posted to Truth Social, Spencer. He said that China played it wrong, that they panicked. He adds that that's the one thing they cannot afford to do. Would you agree that they panicked?
I think China's moves have typically been very, very well calculated, and they've probably come up with a response in advance. I don't agree that China panics. China has worked out their trade policy, 5 years in advance, right? I mean, they're doing the 5-year plans, yeah. Right? But I think the president is entirely correct that maybe their response is not panicked, but they are panicking. They're 100% panicking because they know that their economy depends on access to American markets. If that goes away, they're faced with a huge, huge problem.
You know how I know they're panicking, Spencer? Because I have people who are very close to the China and CCP reaching out to me to say, oh, if Trump does this, it's going to be very, very bad. And they did already have their reciprocal tariffs planned well in advance because, their sort of operatives allies had been warning some of us of this for the last month. Let's real quick talk about the stock market implications of this and why or why not it matters, because there's a lot of people there, that invest. They're picking up their phones, they're looking at their portfolio today, and there's a lot of red. So that can cause concern amongst Americans. Should Americans be concerned about the stock market, or what indication is the stock market really what Trump is doing tariff-wise?
Well, I think it's really, really important to put this in context. America is not a shopping mall. America is not a market. America is not a gas station. America is a nation of people, right? These are people who are bounded together by tradition and blood and history and culture and language. And the nation needs to come first. So when we look at this in a broader context, sure, the stock market's important. People have their retirements put in the stock market. But the stock market fluctuates. It goes up and it goes down. And anytime there's a major shock to the economy, the stock market reacts. But we shouldn't be looking at this and judging the effectiveness of Liberation Day and Trump's tariffs, on a couple of day or even a monthly cycle. This is the sort of economic policy and seismic shift in America's industrial policy that's really going to yield fruits 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, a century down the road. Donald Trump is setting this nation up for immense wealth, but it's not going to be immediate, right? There's going to be some short-term pain. But just like anytime you have short-term pain, whether you're building a muscle or you're building a business, the gains come later, right? And they're worth it in the end.
Yeah, I think that I think Donald Trump is trying to warn the public adequately about that. He just doesn't really have a lot of help because there's a lot of fear mongering in the corporate media, right? Yeah. So a lot of Americans don't understand that there is going to be a period of hurt, but China's so good at its long-term strategy. The United States has not been as well at that because there's a lot of people. We have a very inflated stock market. It's about pumping up these smoke and mirrors and getting rich quick. So a lot of people don't really understand this message. So thank you, Spencer, for coming back and joining us today to dive deeper into the Liberation Day announcement and what it means and what we really need to be looking at and what it all means long term. Thanks, Spencer.
Thank you. God bless.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks because you don't feel like maybe you're well versed enough in the stock market? Well, here's something you won't hear about on CNBC. There's a unique way to collect royalties directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches required. You simply collect checks month after month. And the best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld, breaks down what he believes is the #1 oil royalty play for 2025. Simply visit RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com. RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com. You, my friend, need Native Path collagen, made with only type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers. These are the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body. It's found in cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, your gut. Type 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Also, Native Path collagen has no additives, no artificial sweeteners. It's also completely flavorless, which is important because Native Path collagen can be added to anything. I put it in my coffee. Also, because of its special peptide formulation, it mixes more easily than any other collagen I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot. But the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. Plus, they have a 365-day no-risk guarantee, making Native Path the trusted choice. All you have to do is visit getnativepath.com/truth. That's getnativepath.com/truth to start your transformation. RIP to Christine Grady, otherwise known as Dr. Fauci's wife, who got tossed from the Health and Human Services Department, finally. But here's the punchline. She claimed to be an expert on quote-unquote bioethics. Here's Allison Steinberg in DC with the full story.
And in the end, if people decide not to get vaccinated, that in the end is their choice. Even if they're a nurse, they may not be able to work in the facility that they've been working in, but they've made a choice on their own.
Well, for those that don't know, that right there is Christine Grady, wife of Dr. Science, also known as Dr. Fauci. Grady was once the head of the bioethics department at the National Institute of Health, however, is no longer, courtesy of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has officially given her the axe. Now, this removal comes as a broader effort by Kennedy, who has vowed to eliminate and consolidate various agencies within Health and Human Services to make the department more efficient while saving you, the taxpayer, more money.
We're going to eliminate an entire alphabet soup of departments and agencies while preserving their core functions by merging them into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA.
Aha! I like it. As a result of the new consolidation efforts, 28 agencies will be condensed down to 15, and an estimated 20,000 HHS workers are expected to be laid off. And who better to start with than one of the top pushers of the faulty, safe and effective narrative? While this is great news and certainly a step in the right direction, I don't know about you, but I won't be content until Fauci and his corrupt wife are locked up and thrown in prison right where they belong. But I want to know your thoughts. Will the arrests come, or will the bloodthirsty tyrants who committed crimes against humanity continue to be allowed to roam free? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. I'm Allison Steinberg reporting from DC for Lindelltv.
And here to share her thoughts on the firing of Mrs. Fauci is our friend, the biotech analyst, Karen Kingston. She's also the author of the wildly popular Kingston Report Substack. Oh man, Karen, one down, but yet so many to go. What do you make of the news of Mrs. Fauci being shown the door?
I think it's obviously great that the deep state bureaucracy is being drained from the swamp, if you will, at the NIH. So there was a lot of other announcements too. I saw you cited the Stat News. They also actually eliminated the department for tobacco regulation. It basically was completely annihilated. And what's interesting about that department is there's been a lot of congressional hearings, if you will, because they weren't doing their jobs when it came to e-cigarettes and vaping products. And many of them were coming from outside of the United States. And as I'm sure we remember, young children, teenagers were developing holes in their lungs from these vaping products. So I think it's a good thing that he's cleaning house.
Yeah, it's good. It's a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, we've also not gotten some good people back in per se. We've gotten some, but not all. So I want to know what you think about the CDC director that was nominated, Miss Susan Moneras. There's been a lot of people that's not very excited about her. Sometimes you surprise me with your perspective. So are you going to surprise me on Moneras?
No, I mean, I wrote a Substack on this. I was just disappointed in the decision. She started off in ARPA-H, which is the Administration for I forgot, responsive projects. Anyway, in 2022, she was part of a project that was for the mRNA AI cancer vaccines. She's known as the Kevin Bacon of AI and biotechnology in the industry, like both in and outside of the government. So she seems to be very pro gene editing, merging humans with our, biosensors, using biosensors in humans, things like that. So I'm not a big fan of hers, but I think Dave Weldon was set up to fail, perhaps, with the push to keep vaccines on the market. And I think some of the good news though is Peter Marks. He was the director of the Center for Biologics and Evaluations Research. He was ousted basically on last Friday, on March 28th. And Peter Marks has a long history of overriding all of his peers. He has a history of overriding panels of dozens and dozens of FDA employees as well as outside advisors, and overruling their decisions not to approve vaccines or not to approve gene editing products, even when there was deaths in the trials and they didn't meet their clinical endpoints. So he was a major obstacle to RFK Jr. being able to evaluate the safety, do retrospective data analysis on the safety of the mRNA injection. So I think it was a big thing that he was ousted.
And just to be clear, this was the vaccine chief for Operation Warp Speed, correct? that was essentially given an ultimatum last week to either quit or be fired. Is that who we're
Yes.
talking about here?
Dr. Peter Marks accredits himself as, the visionary, and other publications attribute him as being one of the major architects of the COVID-19 Operation Warp Speed vaccines. It's interesting that on the December 11th, 2020 press statement, when they authorized the Pfizer-BioNTech shots, he was quoted in there, Secretary Azar was quoted in there, but the two women that were in charge of vaccines, so he's above them. He's the director for Center Biologics Evaluation Research, the director for vaccines, and the another director that works in the vaccine department. They were not mentioned in those press statements. And also on August 23rd, 2021, when the FDA approval happened, the two women that signed off on the approval resigned the same day that the approval happened. And again, Peter Marks has a history of being a tyrant in the FDA and of overruling his peers, his bosses, his coworkers. So when they say, we don't think this is safe and effective to approve, he's a one-man tyrant, and he has been approving products on his own. And that's what RFK Jr. talked about in that video clip, not the exact minute that you had shown, but if you listen to it, he said that there were bureaucrats in some of these agencies that basically acted as rogue independent people. There was no structure in regards to management and power. And I think, it's in RFK Jr.'s mind now, good riddance that Peter Marks is gone. And Peter Marks has also been fighting with RFK Jr. before he even got into office as Secretary of Health and Human Services. In November of last year, Peter Marks was at this small biotech conference that wasn't even about vaccines, and just randomly said, vaccines are as safe. I'm as confident that vaccines are safe as gravity is real. I might want to walk off this stage and float, but it's not going to happen. And then he said later on, again, they're having a discussion not about vaccines, and he goes, I want RFK Jr. to know there are no secret files at the FDA. And so when RFK Jr. was saying he was going to have to buy, and I'm assuming tens of millions of dollars to look at the database, the government database of the adverse effects that were caused by the shots, I would bet my bottom dollar that Peter Marks was behind those shenanigans, saying, oh, we can't give you the data, it's going to cost you too much money. Because then he went on Duke University saying, the cost-effective way to determine whether or not vaccines are safe and effective is to look at wastewater.
And that brings us to the controversy of the databases. There's a fight for, as you just noted, for the health secretary to get those. And here is what RFK Jr. said about it himself. He's explaining what the problem is. Listen.
Some of these little fiefdoms, for example, are so insulated and territorial that they actually hoard our patient medical data and sell it for profit to each other. Instead of remedying the chronic disease crisis, perverse incentives have administrators checking boxes and grading their own homework while public health declines. A few isolated divisions are neglecting public health altogether and seem only accountable to the industries that they're supposed to be regulating. In one case, defiant bureaucrats impeded the secretary's office from accessing the closely guarded databases that might reveal the dangers of certain drugs and medical interventions.
How is it that bureaucrats can keep the secretary, the head of the agency, from accessing these databases?
Well, because they know where all the bodies are buried. So they just, they just put up a front and make excuses about why he can't access this data. And Peter Marks, like I said, I believe RFK Jr. was describing Peter Marks. Peter Marks was ousted the next day. He talked about, like, Peter Marks was treating the FDA like his little old fiefdom, like he was the lord of the FDA, Lord Marks. He ruled, and then he also was working with, obviously, HHS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and Peter Marks has been very, very clear that looking at the adverse events of vaccines is not beneficial for public health. That he said vaccines are inherently safe by nature, and he basically was putting up a front to not look at that data. And when he was ousted, Stat News also reported that the former CEO and head of Bio, the world's largest lobbying group in the biotech industry, had said that this was a great loss to the industry, that it was something that they think is going to negatively impact the advancements of vaccines and gene therapies. And this individual also had said, again, the former chief of bio, that there were many efforts to stop him from being ousted, and then made no further comments to Stat News. So he was definitely the guard dog of the databases. He was the guard dog preventing RFK Jr. from creating an FDA committee to analyze the safety of the mRNA shots and to analyze the safety of all the childhood vaccines. It's very clear. I've been following Peter Marks for about 2 years now very closely in again, these biotech conferences where I hear him speak, and he adamantly he says there's no point in looking at the government databases and the effects of the vaccines.
So now that Marks is out of the way, can RFK Jr. move forward now with analyzing this data, or will he have further road barriers?
Yeah, I don't know all the bureaucrats there that are blocking him, but technically speaking, under the law, he should be able to put together a committee to pull the shots. I know people are saying, and I understand pulling the shots are like, we have enough deaths to pull the shots.
Sure.
Yes, 3 years ago. And I agree with that. But to do a proper Class 1 recall under the Code of Federal Regulations, there should be a data analysis done from the U.S. data, which I think is what he wants to do. And the other thing is, Emerald, 43% of Americans, according to a recent poll, still believe that the shots are safe and effective, or at least safe. And so part of the Code of Federal Regulations is to construct a public warning strategy as well. So I don't wish to walk a day in RFK Jr.'s shoes. I mean, he is in the viper's nest. And I pray for that man. I wish him the best of luck, Godspeed, to be able to get this data out there and to be able to recall the shots properly and to put together the proper public messaging, because not all of us know that these can only cause disease, disabilities, infertility, and deaths. Some people think that they were perfectly fine. So there's a lot that needs to go into doing this. But I had originally forecasted he'd pull them off within 100 days. I think we're at day 52. So, I hope I didn't make a losing bet.
There's still time. Still
time.
Still some time. Erin Kingston, you're not wrong yet, but we are keeping track. Thank you. It's always good to see you.
You too, Emerald. Thank you.
Forget about keto, carnivore, low carb, and intermittent fasting diets. If you want to drop stubborn extra pounds and maintain a healthy weight, you need to rejuvenate your overworked liver. Studies have shown that the rate of an overworked liver has skyrocketed by 131% over the past 30 years. And lots of things have contributed to that, like eating processed junk food, drinking alcohol, and even toxic exposure. That's why it is crucial that you take action now to rejuvenate your liver. And that's exactly what Liver Health Formula can help you do. Join in thousands of others in supporting a thriving liver and healthy weight. You can try Liver Health Formula risk-free, and as a bonus gift, receive a free bottle of omega-3s with your order. Try Liver Health Formula by going to getliverhelp.com/Lindell and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Lindell.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks because you don't feel like maybe you're well versed enough in the stock market? Well, here's something you won't hear about on CNBC. There's a unique way to collect royalties directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches required. You simply collect checks month after month. And the best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld, breaks down what he believes is the #1 oil royalty play for 2025. Simply visit RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com. RobinsonOilBoom.com now for more information. That's RobinsonOilBoom.com.
Hello, my fellow election integrity enthusiasts. This is Tony Shoup, CEO of Audit the Vote. The senatorial special election in the 36th district that encompasses Lancaster County this past Tuesday should have been a landslide for the Republican candidate in a deep red district. A Democrat has not won this area since the 1980s. Turned out to be a disaster. And a lot of establishment folks and others are trying to tell us that we just didn't vote early hard enough. And if we just get more mail ballots in more low propensity Republican voters' hands, and we just chase more ballots, that is our strategy for how we are going to take back the House in Pennsylvania and of course win the governorship in the midterms of 2026. The problem is the data tells a wildly different story.
And the data doesn't lie. Take, for example, turnout data as noted by data guru and our friend Seth Keshel, who reported on X that GOP candidate for judge Brett Schimmels had 1.063 million votes, which was higher than any Democrat vote total in the history of any Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Yet, he lost by 10 points. Keshel wrote, quote, "Turnout ain't the issue, folks. Dems have mastered ballot harvesting over a lengthy early voting period and can figure out with basic math where their opponent is likely to wind up in order to get over the top. The country," Keshel goes on to write, "can't survive with mail-in voting." Yet, despite the obvious pitfalls of mass mail-in and early voting, fundraising, GOP fundraising, that is, continues. This is an example of a text that went out after the Wisconsin loss, asking for more money to promote yet more early voting that didn't work. Obviously, money's just too good. Join us now to reflect on exactly what we've learned from the recent Wisconsin and Pennsylvania special election losses is election fraud expert, whistleblower, and investigator, and also our friend Leah Hoops. She co-wrote the book Parallel Election. She's a whistleblower. She constantly is working on stuff, and you can find the book at parallelelection.com. Leah, I can't wait for your analysis. Tell us, what have we learned, if anything? I'm open to we might not have, but what have we learned from these losses?
I'm just speechless, really, sometimes, which is very rare. What we find
rare for you.
That's right. We have an exploitation of a fraudulent system by operatives such as Scott Pressler. And our good friend Brian Ferentz, who talks about Pressler often, and we've had multiple discussions about where Scott Pressler has come from. You know, his father being brought in by Obama as an appointee long ago. He's involved in the Department of Defense Intelligence, and also his brother was involved in some vaccine situations in University of Wisconsin. So his background is very suspect. He's not just some dog walker. He has a criminal justice degree. He's had some issues within the RNC previously, which I will not discuss. But what we're seeing here is people are replacing and learning
because
nothing.
It's not PG. Let's just explain that. We can't really discuss it because it's not.
I don't want to discuss it because it's quite disgusting. The problem that we're having here is that people they haven't learned from 2020. You've replaced Hollywood with these influencers and these people that are, begging for your money and telling you that, oh, we'll get them next time. Oh, we'll get them next time. And if you just provide us with more money, and if you do earlier voting, then we'll solve all of your problems and I'll save the state and blah, blah, blah. And the narrative is just, it gets destroyed every time. And then the other part is that people have like this cognitive dissonance. Like when you bring them facts about Pressler or other operatives, they don't want to hear it. So I'm not really sure where people are and why they just continue to ignore facts. Pressler is pushing a communist agenda, and that is the way that you capture a state like they did Colorado, and the way that they've captured California, and the way that they've captured Washington is through mail-in ballots. And that's it. I mean, there is it is a fraudulent system with multiple loopholes, and then you tie in the machines. I mean, every which way, there's multiple avenues and vectors of fraud. And that's been proven time and time again. I mean, prior to 2016, that's all the Democrats would talk about was the machines and the fraud. And over in Europe, 68% of the European Union countries don't use the mail-in ballot system because of none other than fraud. So it's kind of like I don't know. I sometimes feel like we're in like this circus, and I'm really not sure what, like, maybe people are looking for a show or they need someone to come in and save them. I'm not really sure. But all I can tell you is Scott Pressler is exploiting the mail-in ballot system, I believe, because he's an operative, not for for actual constitutional values and for the actual MAGA movement, but more so because he is an operative for the left. And that's been proven time and time again. I've been exposing him for years. So what has it shown us? It's shown me that after I've been speaking about it for years and exposing Pressler, and exposing the mail-in ballot system, more and more people are actually talking about it and understanding, especially after Wisconsin, that it's fraud. I mean, that's it, plain and simple. The data, that's not my specialty. That's a Seth Keschel specialty. But you can't fudge the numbers. They can fudge the numbers through fake mail-in ballots. So that's what we're seeing.
And that's what we try to tell people post 2024, the general election in 2024. People would say, oh, see, Trump won, so you're just wrong about all this. And we kept saying, but watch the down ballot races. They ended up stealing multiple down ballot races. Nothing had changed. Now, I am working on a story about the 2024 election. Everyone knows this. I'll point you to the pinned tweet on my X account at Emerald Robinson to get caught up on the backstory of it before I can share the rest. But suffice it to say, here's what I will tell you, Leah. Scott Pressler has been told, exactly why pushing mail-in ballots and early voting is problematic. Every person involved, Charlie Kirk, has been told why it's problematic. Some of these people have been presented with evidence of direct fraud and election voting manipulation. Some of them didn't want to see it. They refused to even see briefings on very detailed briefings on exactly how this works. It is a large money maker. I'm just going to rest on the money. It's a large money maker, but it does make it easier to cheat. Every election integrity expert I've spoken to, people who are highly technical, like Clay Parikh, right, who's worked in this field for years, tells me it sets up the fraud. So let's talk about a little data. I know you said you're not a data person, but you are more than the average person. So I do want to look at Pennsylvania, and this is an exclusive that Liz Harrington, who has been on this beat, as long as I have, had related to the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. Listen to what she told me on Wednesday.
This information that was brought to me, they took these names. They have the names of all these Republican so-called mail-in voters, right? That they're claiming a quarter of voted for the Democrat. They ran this through some of the best GOP data, that shows what propensity type voters. This is the bread and butter, right, of the door knocking, of all the mail-in, all of that grift, right? They ran it through and they said there is no way, and I wish they would go public with this. I'm not going to say who, but they went through these names. They said there is no way that 25% voted for the Democrat. It's impossible. At most, it would be 5%. That's still absurd. But even if it was 5%, they're nowhere near having enough votes to flip this race by, of course, just enough, 400 to 500 votes. These votes, when they put the names through, these are right, solid, hardcore Republican voters. These are MAGA voters that showed up in a special election.
There's no way they voted for a Democrat. So it doesn't matter how much door knocking you do. Obviously, that proves they can manipulate it.
Correct. And the other part of that Senate, that race, what's interesting is Mike Miller, who talked about the fraud during his primary in 2022 when he ran against Ryan Allman, who held that seat up until he got fooled by the rhino Dave McCormick. Not obviously, I'm not a Dave McCormick fan. So he got pulled from that position, but only after he won the primary and stole the primary from Mike Miller. Now, Mike Miller, who ran against Almond in 2022 in the primary, his election was stolen. He has proof of it, has filed in the courts, and they have delayed that, of course, forever. That's a shocker. And then once Ryan Almond was pulled away, which is Dave McCormick's fault, excuse me, Mr. President Trump, that's Dave McCormick's fault. Now they bring in Josh Parsons, who he exposed the fact that GBI strategies and voter registration fraud was happening in Lancaster County, which is a part of the 36th district. So Josh Parsons, who ran in that most recent special election in Pennsylvania, people don't even understand the backstory. So then, magically, Josh Parsons loses by 400 votes. Like when they have a 23-point advantage with Republican registration, that's ridiculous. That it is absurd. And people are like, no, we just need to harvest better. I've been listening to this nonsense. I'm coming up on 3 years now. If we could just cheat better, or really, you can cheat better? Well, you're losing, and people are still investing in a losing strategy. I don't know about you, but I don't invest in losers. So that's how I see this. The vote early, ballot harvesting, out cheat the cheaters came from Ronna McDaniel, and Scott Pressler is a shill for the RNC. He hangs out with all the rhinos like Ellen Cox from Bucks County, Valerie Biancanello from Delaware County. They all fund each other, and they sit around and they're basking in their money. He's a fraud. Scott Pressler is a fraud, and he has completely manipulated people into believing he's this gosh darn, happy-go-lucky.
Wow.
Oh wow, just so great. Let me just flip my hair like this, and then everyone will just vote early. It makes me sick. Like, the guy is lying and manipulating the data that he's putting out. He's saying he's registering all these voters, and it's a lie. Brandon Straka just covered some of this information. Brian Ferentz just covered this information. He's lying. How can you be a good person and a nice person if you're lying to the people and then demanding if they just give you more money, it'll fix everything? When has that ever happened? Ever.
And if you look back at the 2024 election, the data just showed that mail-in ballots didn't come in massive amounts like they did in the 2020 election. And that made a huge difference in Pennsylvania, outside of also some of the other things that I'll report on later. Brian Ferentz has done a great job on this, so I want to give him a big shout out and tell people if they want to follow what you're talking about in detail with receipts, you can go to @BrianFerentz1, @BrianFerentz1, and of course you can also follow Leah Hoops on X, which I recommend you do. Leah, you actually set up my Rhino Watch segment perfectly, which is up next, so I appreciate that, because not only do they mess up the elections, but when they're in office, they just do nothing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment with a J6 defendant who knows well what these kind of stolen elections result in. Thank you so much, Lee. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you, Emerald.
The 2025 John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award will be presented to none other than Vice President Michael R. Pence for, quote, putting his life and career on the line to ensure the constitutional transfer of presidential power on January the 6th, 2021. Never has there been more irony in an award presentation. For the only award really appropriate for Judas Pence would perhaps be one titled the Cowardly Rhino Award, because that is exactly what he is. For as Jeff Carlson pointed out on X, Pence was a crucial part of the J6 setup. Mike Pence knew exactly what would happen. But unfortunately, there are more Pences than Trumps in the Republican Party. And J6er Howard Richardson knows this all too well, and he joins us now from Pennsylvania. Howard, you got awarded with 2 years in prison based on January the 6th, 2021. But Mike Pence is going to be feted and celebrated and given the John F. Kennedy Award. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, I know what you're speaking of. Mike Pence could have done several things that day, and he didn't want to see or know anything more than what he'd already made up his mind he was going to have happen to either his own position or constituents around him. But he obviously was not working with Mr. Trump that day.
And what do you feel of Republicans overall? There's not a lot that's happened in the House since they took power, right? You have a trifecta. You have Trump in the Oval Office. You have a Senate, Republican-led Senate. You have a Republican-led House. And you all have been in prison, and now you finally have a trifecta. How do you feel about the current Republican government?
I'm so glad you asked. I reached out to Mr. Jim Jordan and Mr. Barry Loudermilk, who were appointed by President Trump roughly around January 27th. They accepted these positions as the January 6th Investigative Committee. I learned about it, and I said to myself, about 4 weeks after it was put into play, around the end of February, beginning of March, I reached out to them. I concluded that, hey, if you're really investigating January 6th, wouldn't you like to talk to somebody who was there and knows a lot about it? So I reached out to them. Mr. Jordan has never returned my phone call. Mr. Loudermilk's staff responded back to me with this. They said, we're going to send you an email, Mr. Richardson, telling you what we're doing, what we're looking for, so on and so forth. To the best of my knowledge, I have never seen this email. So I am very, very disappointed with the Republicans, especially Mr. Jordan and Mr. Loudermilk.
Are you going to continue to follow up with their offices and try to get them to talk to you?
Ma'am, I already have between 500 and 1,000 signatures on a petition. I'm going to send it to his office, and I'm going to reach out to the media, people like you, to call them and say, why are you not responding to this petition? We have well over 500 people that are going to sign this petition and send it to Loudermilk and Mr. Jordan.
Where can people go to support your petition?
Well, they can go to me, or they can go, a gentleman I'm collaborating with. He also is a J6er. His name is Donnie Smith. Donald Smith is in New Jersey, and I met him through another J6er, and he totally agreed with what I was doing. Then we referred to another J6er who's doing pretty much what we're trying to do, only he was doing it on a more grander scale. So we went down to Washington, D.C. last Thursday and met and talked with him and about 30, 35 other J6ers. And we are thoroughly disgusted with Republicans. We know who the Democrats are. They are the scoundrels in this whole episode. But the Republicans know the truth. They've known the truth for at least a year. They've known the truth. But the question is, what are they doing?
Would you also like to see more action out of the Trump Department of Justice related to J6?
I don't know specifically what the Department of Justice is doing. At this point, I don't put a lot of faith in them. All I know is that Trump appointed a January 6th investigative committee overseen by Jim Jordan of Ohio, and the chairperson for that committee is Barry Loudermilk. I reached out to both of them. They have not responded back to me. Like I said, the one did, but he said they were going to send me an email. I have yet to see it, and that's over 4 weeks now.
Well, Mr. Richardson, if you do hear from either of them, let us know. I would not put much stock in hearing back from Chairman Jordan. This is a similar situation to that I've heard from whistleblowers in the past, not related to J6, but to other situations. They'll respond when it's beneficial for them to do so prior to, say, a midterm, but after they're no longer, useful for campaigning, they ghost them. So I would be very shocked if you hear back from Jordan's office. But of course, if you do, we'll update our audience. And of course, as well as if you hear back from Congressman Loudermilk, we would love to let our audience know. Please keep us posted, Howard.
Well, if that's the case, then they are utterly worthless. Trump appointed them and they accepted. They were not mandated. They were not brought into and coerced into this. They accept the positions to be the head of the January 6th Investigative Committee. My question is, what are they doing? And it's not just these two. I'm not picking on them. I'm not being critical of just these two people alone. There's a whole bunch of people, for in large part Republicans, and the question becomes really, what are they doing? They know the truth.
I think we know what they're doing, Mr. Richardson, but we'll continue to hold their feet to the fire. Thank you so much. I think you froze and we lost you, but we'll have you back soon to discuss whether or not you've heard from them. Either way, we'll talk about what has come about in the next couple of weeks or what has developed. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, Emerald.